I find that to be rather annoying because I want to be in charge of these things. And this is my path, is to like, nope, you don't get to be in charge of everything.
I find it totally annoying too.
Welcome to Wandering Weirdly, a podcast for curious adventurers, joyful rebels, and multi-passionate wanderers of every kind.
We're Annie and Thomas, friends exploring the messy magic of life and following curiosity wherever it leads.
Every episode is a journey through creativity, self-discovery, and the wonderfully tangled map of being a human.
Wandering Weirdly is a part of the Bold Departure Network, podcast for those craving an authentic and unconventional life on their own terms.
Welcome back to another episode of Wandering Weirdly. How are you today, Thomas?
I'm doing well, Annie.
Oh, it's so good to see your face and be here for another chat.
Are you ready for our chat today?
I mean, as ready as I ever am.
Yeah, me too. Same here.
So what shall we talk about?
Let's talk about seasons. The idea of doing something and then letting it go and then coming back to it later. That's what I mean by seasons. Seasons are cycles.
Okay. Yeah. I was actually just talking about this with a family member over the weekend. So perfect timing.
Mm-hmm. What was their reaction to the idea?
They were talking about it because it's my cousin. She is a photographer. She does photography just as a hobby. She's talking about how she'll take photos and not really know what to do with them. And they'll just kind of sit there.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, weeks, months, days, it will just, that's what I need to do with this one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sometimes we start a thing or we create a thing and we're not really sure where it's going to go, what it's going to do. And then, so we just set it down for a while and then we come back.
Sometimes things have to gestate or percolate, or there's a lot of metaphors for it.
It's true. And this is the thing that that my brain sometimes struggles with, that like in our society that expects everything to be very linear. Like you did the thing and then the next step and then the next step. And we just keep going in this like monotonous, very timed out rhythm that's just not really how it works.
Especially if you are curious and you're interested in so many different things. There's so much to say about that. One is, I'm going to speak for myself. My mind loves to jump to new things all the time. Like, you hear something on TV, or you hear something that a friend tells you, and then your mind just bounces like, oh, okay, that reminds me of this thing, and let me go explore that. And that's the exploration part, right? Because it feels good. It feels like, this is something that aligns with something inside of me. And then you have to go explore it. But guess what? You're now letting aside all this other stuff that you were working on, or you started, or have passions about. And for the longest time, I had this sort of voice in my head that was saying, why are you doing that? Why can't you stick to one thing at a time? That's sort of the voice of disapproval that comes from what we hear on outside of us.
Totally.
And so, of course, what I've learned now is that that's not my voice. That's somebody else's voice. They can say that, but I'm not going to listen to it. Yeah. I have accepted that my mind just bounces around. I have a friend of mine who calls me Tigger.
That tracks. I get that.
That's their nickname for me.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
And I just love the idea of bouncing around like Tigger.
Totally.
Some other people liken it to a bee that goes from flower to flower to flower, sampling each flower. But I like the Tigger analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, Tigger was having fun all the time.
all the time. He
Yeah.
was so joyful, so much fun. Yes. Um, yeah, I relate to that. I think for me, the what do you do? 'Cause this is the hard part for me is sometimes, like, example, the book I'm attempting to write. There are these things that, like, I really want, like, I want to do this. I want to complete this project. And then I find these seasons, yeah, where, like, I just can't get myself to work on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting better at trusting my own process to know that I will pick it back up again when I'm ready. So, but there's this part in my brain that I'm like, no, but I want it done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then some other part of me that I apparently am not in charge of is like, no, we are not doing that right now. And I just, like, cannot get myself to sit down and do the thing. So, I mean, do you experience that same thing where it's like, I know this is a project I care about, and I'm really having a hard time getting myself to make progress on this. And then I do know myself well enough to know that something will shift, and then I will sit down and bust it out and it'll be fine. But how do we navigate, like, there's the acceptance of, okay, I am in this season where I am just now going to work on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The acceptance of that, and also trusting, like, the process. Do you experience this, and how do you, like, I would love to hear kind of what this is like for you.
I have all kinds of seasons happening all the time, yeah, for the things that I'm passionate about. And yes, absolutely. There's a couple of projects that I have right now that are very near and dear to me that I want to make progress on. There is some writing that I want to do. There is a YouTube series that I want to pursue. And both of those, I would say both of those feel stuck at the moment. But what I know is that both of those, what really is happening is that both of those just needs a little bit more information, a little bit more exploration. And so that exploration will get me closer. And I also know that exploration sometimes needs to wait. Right? It's like I could try going down that path right now, but I feel very much inside me is like, I'm not ready. So there's that part of it. There's even, I guess what I'm saying is that there's this season for exploring something that you're passionate about. And I know that I'll get there. I also sort of pay attention to where am I at in terms of my other seasons, right? This past weekend I went down a glorious rabbit hole of developing something for my website, and it was all consuming, but it really felt good. It's like I was hyper focusing. I know I was hyper focusing, but in a good way, right? I mean, I wasn't starving myself. I was still going to eat and taking care of other things, but this was the thing that really felt in alignment, where I really felt in alignment. And that's why I said this is a good season to be in, because when you feel that alignment, there's really nothing that can stop you, right? As a multi-potentialite, as someone who has all these different interests and all these ideas, when you get aligned with a particular thing and you have like everything that you need to pursue it, you're basically unstoppable, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think my brain wants to, like, hack that. Like, how do I, like, just make that happen? And it is one of those things that there's no coercing it. It's either like you're either in the zone on fire about it, or it's just not, which, for me as a, like, problem solver, as a, like, strategy, oriented, that I'm like, yeah, but no, like, I should be able to create that for myself, and that is just not how it works.
Sometimes, I can do it sometimes, but oftentimes I can't. I have a sort of a set of tools that I use to find the thing that unlocks like the next step. One of the tools is just a basic mind map. And I think we've already talked about this before. It's like, okay, I know it's up here, and I just need to start, spewing it down onto the paper, like throwing spaghetti on the wall, just get stuff out of my head onto the paper as fast as I can and see if something appears. Sometimes that really is effective. Other times, another technique that I use is meditation, where I actually quiet the mind to the extent that ideas can just come in, inspirations can come in. Some of my wildest and best ideas appear that way, because what you're doing is you're relaxing the mind, and the mind has this chance to start making these wonderful, bizarre connections that it normally would not make if you're always on the go, if you're always doing something. But the other thing I wanted to say about that is that sometimes you just have to trust that the little piece of information that your mind is wanting to get into alignment, that little piece of information is going to take some time to appear. And it might be just meeting with a friend and chatting, and something they say is oh, I could do it that way, yes. And then you're there, Or it might be something that you see when you go to a museum or a library or a bookstore, or just sitting in a cafe somewhere. I mean, oftentimes the thing that will appear that allows you to finally get into alignment again and give you that straight shot where you can start working on it again is something that has to happen a day or a week or, a few weeks from now. And it might just have to happen in some other situation, in some other context, so that your mind can make that connection and say, okay, there it is. I've finally made the connection. Now I can start working again.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it tends to be for me, but I find that to be rather annoying because I want to be in charge of these things, and this is my life lesson. This is my path, is to nope, you don't get to be in charge of everything.
I find it totally annoying too.
I know.
I've worked so hard over the last 5 years in particular as I've been understanding my way of being, especially in relation to multipotentiality. I've spent a lot of time sort of thinking about this very question, and the answer that I've come up with is that there are things that I can do, and then sometimes I just have to wait it out, and something magical appear, and it may require going down totally unrelated rabbit holes, because sometimes you can't find it unless you're going down this totally other path that's doesn't on the surface feel like it's related at all.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to remember too, is that, I mean, I think a lot of this has to do with trusting ourselves, that okay, I've been in this human body for however long, I've been doing this for a minute, we have figured out that yeah, we do move in these cycles and seasons through projects and life and whatever. And that's been the thing for me, at least, is to okay, this is not my first rodeo. We have done this before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to stress out about it. I know it will come around. And yeah, allowing ourselves okay, then what am I going to do in the meantime? There's no shortage of ideas or interests or things. But also, I think part of the tricky bit is leaving the space. Because I know myself, there's so many things I'm curious about, interested in, want to do, whatever, that, okay, well, this project is in the winter season of it's just over there resting for a while. But my tendency is to then fill that space with something else instead of and what if we didn't? What if we just left some open, empty space?
Mm-hmm.
What could that be like? Which, I mean, I don't know about you, but that's hard for me when there are so many things that I'm curious about and want to do. And so it's hard to leave that open space to just let yourself get bored or not do a thing.
You literally have to twist my arm to get me to be bored.
Same. I mean, I hear people say that well, what am I going to do today? I'm bored. I'm I cannot even fathom the idea of not having something to fill my time with. That like I have the opposite problem. Like I have a whole list over here of things that, oh man, I would love to get to those. Well, they're in the parking lot for now, but someday I'll get time for those.
I like the idea of calling it seasons because at least a couple of my passions are actually seasonal. Like fishing is seasonal just because fish are seasonal. Foraging for mushrooms is the same thing. You have to forage for mushrooms when the rains start. And here in California, it starts in November typically, right? Even my model railroading, from when I was a little kid, that was always something we did in the winter. It was always associated with Christmas, partly because, we would get model railroads as gifts. So that's when our interest was peaking. Yeah, a lot of my interests actually sort of correspond with real seasons just because. And then, I have other things that, like new interests that come in, like writing is sort of a new interest of mine. And I'm still sort of understanding how that works as a season. I worked on it last year in September, October, November, and it felt good, and then it sort of waned, and now I'm looking to start that again, but it just doesn't feel quite right yet.
Yeah. I mean, as both an astrologer and a nature lover, I pay a lot of attention to the actual seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I do notice some interesting alignments with projects and energy, like my own kind of energy for things, depending on the actual time of year. And so, like, I was kind of hoping to get first rewrites done during winter because I know spring and summer, I want to be outside.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be sitting behind my computer. I want to be out doing the things. But, I mean, everything has its fallow period, right? It has its dormant phase. And I think we've just become accustomed in modern life to pretending like that's not a thing. That like, oh, everything's the same every day.
Yeah.
All year long. Like there are no changes. We're just supposed to operate at this same thing. And I'm like, I literally have nature right outside my window. I'm like, no, life does not work like that. It is not the same all year. We have all sorts of different things happening depending on, what time of year it is. And that, it's helpful for me to remember when I start to get annoyed with the inability to just force things to happen. But that's okay. All of life moves in seasons, and
do you
sometimes
ever,
it's springtime energy and sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever mourn a season that has come to a close, a passion that's come to a close?
Not really. Things I know about myself. I tend to be a forward facing, like, a thing is done, okay, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't tend to, I will give it that moment to recognize and okay, reflect on this thing has come to an end. What did I learn from it? How is that? But it's rare that I mourn it. It's mostly, I know I'm going to get astrological. I'm a double Scorpio, sun and moon. So I am built for cycles and seasons of this life, death, rebirth, that nope, a thing has ended, and that whatever I learned from it, none of it was wasted. It all becomes compost for whatever is coming next.
Right.
So
nourishment.
There's the acknowledgement of the release, but for me, it isn't really a mourning. It's just okay, well, that was a thing, and now we're done with it and moving on.
I like what you're saying about acknowledging it, because I think that's what I'm not doing enough of. I find myself sometimes running so fast to the next thing, jumping down the next rabbit hole so quickly that don't give myself the opportunity to acknowledge, like, oh, look at that, this has now come, this season has now come to an end, and it was good for these reasons, and I'm looking forward to when that season reoccurs, when it comes back. I don't think I do that enough, and I think that's where my sort of sense of, I don't want to say loss, because it isn't loss. It's just the end of a season. It's going to come back again, but it's a sense of something missing, and I think that thing that I'm missing is just that acknowledgement, like, oh, look at this thing.
It's that closure. Like
that closure.
The traditional world operates in like quarters.
Mm-hmm.
For me, quarters are literally the seasons that, like,
mm-hmm.
at the end of each season, I will take time to do an intentional reflection about that season, and depending on, obviously, each season kind of has different energy and different kind of associations in the grander scheme of nature and all of that. And so, I take some time, like a full week. I mean, I don't spend the whole week doing this, but I kind of block my calendar as far as, meetings and things like that, to just give myself the space to really take the time to reflect on the past season, to really do that kind of composting of like, okay, what are we releasing? What gets carried forward?
Mm-hmm.
What did we learn? To really honor that ending.
Mm-hmm.
This one's done. And now, what are we looking forward to in the next one? What intentions are we setting? So that's a practice. I don't even know when I started doing that. At some point, I just was like, this makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's a good just like pause and check in to, am I still aligned with what I want to do? Because we move through so many things,
mm-hmm.
it's a chance to like pause and check in. That initially, like at the beginning of this season, I was excited about these things. Have I made progress? Am I still interested in this? Is it time to let it go?
Right.
And I feel like that has been really helpful for me, just to check in and be intentional about where I'm going next and what is getting my time and energy and
mm-hmm.
all of that. But also to like honor that ending, release what needs to be let go, and to like plant those seeds of intention for what I do want to see coming to fruition next.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice practice. And how great that you picked it up. You don't remember how you picked it up, but it was like, this is obvious. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it just some at some point after I left like traditional work,
mm-hmm.
corporate, and started paying attention to the world around me, like the natural world more, that it was like, this way of doing things doesn't make sense. What feels more natural. I did a workshop, like an annual planning workshop in January, that was really, built in the seasons and this kind of thing. I've thought about creating these seasonal kind of opportunities for us to like pause, mm-hmm. recognize, and really honor the different phases, because every project has a different phase. The seasons of our life have a different phase. And sometimes just simply acknowledging, I'm in this, like, I'm in a wintry kind of season, or this feels like springtime energy, helps us also reframe kind of how we're thinking about whatever the thing is.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in roller coaster season right now.
You're in a transition season. So we're talking, usually that's some spring or fall energy. You're definitely not sitting quietly in winter energy.
That's true. No, I think you're right about that.
It's probably, I feel like just based on what you've said, this is some springtime energy. This is new stuff. This is new growth, new life. This is,
Yep.
where we plant all the seeds and see what's going to come up. Because not
mm-hmm.
everything's going to sprout.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes lots of things do sprout, and then we have to kind of thin it out, that like, we don't have room for all of this. Yeah. We got to make some choices.
I also find that well, again, speaking for myself, because I can get hyper focused on all kinds of creative projects. So I find by going out and going on vacations, going places, it offers a reset, or it offers a break, at least. I found that, as an example, when we have an annual trip to go up to Lake Shasta, and we just relax for a few days on the lake. And often those are deeply satisfying, but also have the effect of closing many, many seasons and opening many new ones. So that act of traveling and going to a different place is a wonderful way to at least mark the seasons.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're speaking to my travel loving heart. That like my favorite way to reset is like, let's have a trip. Let's go somewhere. Let's pause. New environment, like change the energy, shift things up. It does do wonderful things. I mean, I can think of more than one time in my life, upcoming trip included, that like, oh, my life is shifting. You know what? I need a trip. I need to go away, get a fresh perspective, get out of the everyday, what I'm used to, the routines, the spaces, the people, like all of that. And it's like shaking it off. And okay, now who are we becoming next? You kind of have to step out in order to get a clearer picture. I mean, it's that thing, like you're just too close to it to really see the whole thing. And when you step away, I find, for myself at least, so much more clarity comes through.
Yeah, it does. I think it's time to close this season for this episode.
I think you're probably right. Any final thoughts?
Well, we've talked a little bit about this podcast being in seasons, and we have a few more episodes to go in this particular set of episodes, season 1. And I'm excited for what we are designing for the next season. We haven't really talked about it much yet, Annie, but I know both of us probably have some ideas percolating.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And I think, we did that on purpose, that because we know, as our multi-potentialite selves, that doing the same thing forever is a recipe for burnout and irritation and all of that.
Boredom.
Totally. That we set that up from the beginning, that like we'll do a season and then we'll take a break.
Yep.
And then we'll give us time for fresh ideas. And maybe on the next episode, we can talk a little bit more about what we have in mind for season 2.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Stay tuned, folks. More info coming.
Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Wandering Weirdly.
You can find show notes and past episodes at wanderingweirdly.com.
Tune in next time for another wild and wandering exploration.
Don't forget to check out bolddeparturenetwork.com for more podcasts about authentic and unconventional living.